Good day, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar titled Software Selection and Evaluation. Looking at your screen, you would see a little boy trying to make a choice out of varieties of ice cream. They all look colorful, attractive, interesting, and yummy. And he's so confused, he doesn't even know where to start from. He wants to have everything, but of course he cannot have everything at the same time. He needs to pick just one, or maybe pick one strawberry, vanilla, chocolate, but he needs to make a choice. And so we are also faced as organizations are faced with a tough decision when it comes to selecting software solution to use for their day-to-day businesses. With technology and innovation, we have so many tools out there in the market. You are looking at different lines of business, from HR to finance to supply chain. There are so many tools out there. So how can we as project managers or as business analysts, how do we support the organization to make robust decision, to do good analysis work that will support those decision making? So I welcome you all to this webinar once again, and I'll be leading you through a framework I have used, and it has worked out well for my organization. And I hope it would also work well for you. It's something you can adopt, tweak, and tailor to your relevant situation in your organization. So the first step I call it's a 4-phase framework. The first step is the conduct discovery. The second is conduct external scan. The third phase is to request vendor information. And the fourth phase is then to make your final recommendation. So all the information you've gathered from the first 3 phases, you are summarizing, analyzing, and presenting your findings to the stakeholders. When choosing a SaaS provider, organizations must consider both the product capability as well as interconnectivity, user experience, and overall price, total cost of ownership. You have to consider all of this in making those decisions for your organization. So let's drill down into each of these phases. The first phase here is the conduct discovery phase. And the objective of this phase is to understand and validate the business need. You want to make sure that there's actually a problem you are trying to solve. Is there a technology problem, or is there something else going on? Could this problem be solved by reviewing or improving the process, or maybe even enhancing the existing solution? What problem are we trying to address? And you're also trying to define, based on your understanding of the needs, you want to define high-level business and solution requirements in this phase of the work. Key activities you typically perform here would be identify all the relevant stakeholders. Every stakeholder that will be impacted, that will be a user that is either hands-on on the technology tool or receiving output from that technology tool, needing any source of information. They are stakeholders. You want to identify them, bring them to the table, understand their needs, their pain points. You also want to, when you validate, when you identify your relevant stakeholders, you want to understand what the needs are, validate it's an actual need, and then define it, articulate it so that everyone has a common understanding. Then define the vision. What will success look like? What is the future state? What are the expected outcomes if we buy this technology solution? You want to also get that understanding during this phase of the work. Based on that, you conduct current state analysis, trying to understand what currently exists, and you are reviewing the processes, existing technology, or if there are no technology, interfaces, interconnectivity, data, the use of data within the organization. You're also looking at the people, the structure of the organization to understand what currently exists. Part of the current state analysis involves conducting user research. The processors, those that would use this new system, what are their expectations? What is their process? What process are you trying to automate? What are their current pain points? What are the challenging business scenarios that you are hoping this new tool should be able to resolve? Also, if there are, like I mentioned earlier, there are existing technology, you want to identify shortcomings around it, so that when you are selecting the new tool, you are selecting a tool that would potentially address all, most if not all of the shortcomings with the existing technology. So you try to put together all your findings, analyze, summarize your findings. Based on your analysis, determine what are the key business and solution requirements. And at this point, high level, we are not doing detailed business or detailed solution requirements. So it's high level at this point. At this point, you also want to understand if the organization has an implementation partner that will be implementing this technology too, or if there is a need to also source for an implementation partner. So you also want to understand what the organization is looking at and document those requirements. After you are done summarizing, analyzing your findings in form of requirements, you want to engage your stakeholders to validate your findings and also prioritize, because we are going into the market with these key requirements. So what are the showstoppers? What are the must-haves? What are the could have, the nice to haves? You want to get that understanding before going into the market. So the key deliverables you should be looking out for in this phase would be your stakeholder listing, doing your thorough stakeholder identification and analysis, needs definition and articulation of what the business problem is, high-level business and solution requirements to address the future state. So the next phase is then you have to conduct external scan. Remember, in the first phase, it was focused on the internal analysis, the current state analysis, but you're not going to make decision only based on what you have found out internally. So you also want to review externally to see what is happening in with the competitors and also with the market. So the objective of this phase is to learn from the experiences of peers that have implemented similar solutions, and also to identify the product market offering and key solution capabilities. So looking externally, you are looking at the peers, you're looking at maybe competitors, if you have information around what the competitors are doing, especially the leading, the top performers in the industry. You're also trying to understand what the product market is looking like. If it's a human resource solution, you're looking at what are the human resource technology solutions in the market, what are their key capabilities. So key activities you perform in this phase of the work include researching industry and product universe. So you want to understand what are the product offerings, who are the vendors, who are the key vendors that are playing in this segment of the technology market, and what are the products available. You want to also define the solution's core features and capabilities. And how do you do this? When you begin to research and identify individual products, you will begin, based on the product review, documentations around that product, you begin to see core features and capabilities that are similar across products within that sector. So you want to also define all of this. Identify industry peers with similar experiences. You want to be able to leverage on the experiences of others, because we are going into this maybe for the first time. If you are in the public sector, this is very, very common. You can reach out to similar organizations that have done, maybe have implemented similar to maybe HR tool, for example, or student information system if you are in the education industry. It could also be an ERP if you work within a government organization. So you want to reach out to them. And I know very well that public sector organizations usually exchange information, book meetings to learn their experiences, ask questions and learn from their experiences, and that would also help you streamline your process and guide your selection. Next, you want to conduct discovery meetings with those industry peers once you identify them. And as a BA, you might ask, how do you identify these industry peers? So if you are working with a business stakeholder, they usually have counterpart colleagues. They have colleagues in other organizations doing similar work, because most times they meet in networking events, conferences. So you reach out to your project sponsor or your business owner and ask if they can connect you with any counterpart staff in other organizations to learn what they are doing. They are usually quite helpful in that regard. So you then analyze based on your findings from the discovery meeting with the peers. You want to document your findings. You ask, you prepare for those meetings, right? Come up with possible questions you want to ask them, from why the choice of the product they use, what process did they follow to select, what were the problems they encountered during the selection period. So analyze, document all your findings. And in the course of also interviewing these industry peers, you might come across some requirements you have not encountered or you were not aware of based on those interactions. So you want to also update your requirement document at this point. And of course, now you have enough information based on your internal analysis and external analysis. You can now define an evaluation criteria for your selection process. You can also go a step further to get expert opinion and recommendation. Now, what do I mean by this? So you are seeking the opinion of experts, people that are consultants that have experience implementing this tool. It is like their bread and butter. They know they know about the industry, they know the key players, they know their implementation approach, they know the experiences of others because they conduct lots of research. An example of an organization that plays in this space is Gartner. You also have Forrester. You have lots of research organizations that their job is to review activities in different technology line of businesses and write papers and reports to share their expert opinion. So you might have access to a Gartner report. You have the Magic Quadrant. You also have Forrester report. I think it's called the Forrester Wave. Yes. So all those documents, if you have very recent version of those documents, it can guide you hear what the experts are saying about those products. Better still, if your organization has subscriptions with Gartner, which is how you can actually assess their reports. You can also schedule what is called an analyst call. And what, from my experience, what happens when I book an analyst call is that I send the list of questions, my objective, what I'm trying to achieve, to the analyst, and then they take time to do research, gather some documentation. Also, they are in the industry, they conduct this research, and I book half an hour meeting to ask questions and get feedback from them. And those kind of calls have been quite helpful in directing me and my team in the right direction during our selection process. So if you have access to all those consultant help, please leverage them. So at the end of my industry, my market scan, meetings with the peers, expert, Gartner analyst or expert opinion, at this point, I should be able to come up with a short list of vendors, at least say maybe 3 to 5 vendors. If I can get less at this point, even better for me. So key deliverables from this phase would be your meeting agenda questions. If you notice, you'll be interacting with industry peers here, meeting with experts if you have access to them. So you want to take time to prepare for your meetings, come up with a great agenda, and of course, the right questions so that you can get the right information you need for your work. You'll be able to come up with your list of solution or the core features of your solution. You should have a list at the end of this phase. Vendor and product shortlist. You should be able to come up with the vendors you want to continue to consider going forward. Your updated requirement listing. So based on what you find through your interaction with the Gartner, I think I keep mentioning Gartner because I use their resources a lot. But through your interaction with the industry peers, or and also your review of any of those consultant or research organization documentation, you might come across more new requirements you were not aware before that are critical, that may be of good value to the organization. So you want to also update your requirement documentation at this point. Also, at this point, you should be able to have your solution evaluation criteria, listing and weighting. So what will be the standard of evaluation? You have listed, say, at least 3 vendors. How are you going to evaluate and rank them so that you can make recommendation of at least 1 to your organization? So at this point, you should be able to have that listing ready. So in this slide, what I have showing here is the feature and according to Gartner, for organizations that are selecting SaaS products, the 5 top capabilities that most organizations are looking out for, are they focus on, especially for also the ranking and the rating, is the feature and the functionalities. What is that system able to do? The security, how well secured is your application? You don't want people with unauthorized access gaining access to your system. How easy is it to also integrate this tool to other existing technology tool within the enterprise architecture? You also want to consider the quality of the user experience. You want to buy a tool with a great user interface. Also, you want to consider the capabilities of connectivity via APIs. So these 3 factors should be part of, depending on, again, the tool, but this is top recommended. It should be part of at least your evaluation criteria. So this slide also shows a list of resources where you can get expert opinion. I mentioned Gartner, Forrester, G2.com, you have IDC, Infotech, Research, GitHub, and you can Google all these names on the web, online. Sometimes you're able to get free resources from some of them. Gartner, most times you won't get their very updated documentation online. It's usually gated, is a subscribed service. But depending on organizations that maybe if they have good ratings on the Magic Quadrants, you are able to, they usually display those reports on their website. So you are able to see those reports and get a sense of who are the other players in that industry. So you also have Trustpilot, SearchForge. Again, Gartner, Forresters are usually for the very high-end technology tools, but you have GitHub, Trustpilot, and some other smaller research organizations like Capterra for tools that are not so pricey. So there are some tools, depending on the budget of the organization. If it's a small business, most times you wouldn't get the application they will use on. Maybe they might not meet the criteria for Gartner analysis. So this is just a range. You have a variety here you can use to do your research. Also, I have here, according to Gartner suggests that when you are assessing your vendors, or when you are trying to evaluate the tools and the vendor, you can use those criteria and use those weightings. So when you're evaluating the product functionality, you should allocate the weighting of at least 40%. You're looking at the product and service costs, the vendor services and their support. How are they going to support their implementation, the solution once it goes live? What's the viability of that vendor? How well structured an organization are they? And what's their vision for that product? You don't want to buy a product that will be retired, like sunsetting very soon. So you want to get all those understanding, and all of this should influence your ranking and rating. The third phase now is to request vendor information. Remember, we ended the last phase by you shortlisting some vendors. So once you have, say, 2 to 3 vendors, now you can request more specific information to aid your analysis, further analysis and ranking. The objective of this phase is to get more information around vendor and product specific offerings. You want to understand what are, get deeper understanding of their capabilities, their implementation approach, what's the budget, what's the total cost of ownership for that technology tool you are looking at acquiring for your organization. So the key activities in this phase here we have, you want to, because you want to learn, get a deeper understanding of specific product offerings per vendor, you are planning and booking some vendor product discovery call. You want to have some interaction with the vendors, ask questions one-on-one, and get an overview of the system if you may within that short period. But it's usually a very short meeting, not a detailed demo session. It's more like information gathering, discovery call. So you are requesting vendor. You can send them, aside from booking those meetings, you are requesting the product information, the solution implementation information. They can send those information ahead, or they could also come to the meeting with those information. You also want to prepare, if you want them to walk you through quickly, give you a brief walkthrough of their solution, you want to prepare some demo scripts to guide them. Oh, and your demo scripts should come from your the information you gather from your stakeholders, their pain point, the challenging business scenarios. Those should inform your demo script, and you can send it ahead to the vendor. You also want to educate and prepare your evaluators for this session. So who are your evaluators? They are your key, there are people from, you select some people from the stakeholder group. You perform stakeholder identification at the beginning of the process. So you want to pick some key people that have very good knowledge into the process, into the solution delivery. And of course, it's not limited to the IT team, the business team, every part of the business that the key part of the business, not every part, the key part of the business should be represented, and they would help you evaluate the information that the vendor will be providing. Now, you as the business analyst or the project manager, is not recommended you go alone to this session. So prepare your evaluators, educate them, let them understand what the session is going to look like and what is expected of them. You want to spend time to prepare your ranking score sheet, and of course, it should be part of your orientation with the evaluators. Show them the ranking score sheet and how you expect them to rank and score each of the vendors as they provide and present their information. You then conduct your discovery call and high-level solution demo with the vendors. Evaluate and rank vendors as they are presenting their solutions to you. At the end of the day, you want to collate the notes of all the evaluators, because you would need to analyze that and gain insight that would help make the final decision. So the key deliverables in this phase, you have your meeting agenda, because you want to prepare for the meetings with the vendor, the demo scripts, evaluation score sheets, the product and solution implementation approach. These are informations you would gather through interactions with the vendor during the meeting, or before the meeting. They might send you some documentations you need to perform further analysis on to get more information. So this forum is usually a space for a more meaningful dialogue. You want to learn about the technology. You want to collect information that enables a shorter and more productive RFP. Yes, because if during this phase, during this part of the work reduces and enhances the RFP, reduces the turnaround time for your RFP. So holding face-to-face sessions with potential vendors before the RFP will provide you with time to share requirements, budget, timelines, pain points, and other concerns in detail with more context, so that they can provide you with a more thorough and tailored response, again, during the RFP. Now, the final phase here is you making your recommendation to the business. So the objective here is you want to assemble all the information you've been gathering from the first three phases, and then analyze and present your final recommendation to the business so that it can proceed with decision making. So the key activities here is to analyze and summarize your evaluation results. It could be from the ranking sheet, and also for qualitative information you gathered as the vendors were making their presentation. You also want to perform solution fit gap assessments based on your understanding of the solution the vendor is providing and the business process. You would have collected some financial information, so you want to prepare financial analysis. You want to perform some analysis on those data. And one key analysis you would perform is what you call the total cost of ownership. Most times organizations would perform this over a 5-year or 10-year period, depending on the policy of the organization. The organization wants to know what it's going to cost them to own that tool. So it ranges in you calculating the total cost of ownership. You are looking at the cost of licensing or subscription, and the cost of implementation, the cost of if you are getting implementation partners to help you implement the tool, how much is it going to cost? If you have some other both internal and external resources that will be necessary for implementation, you are factoring in all of those costs, and you are looking at it from year 0 to say year 5 or year 10. Now, it's important for you to know that depending on if you are deploying an on-prem solution or a cloud-based solution, the costing component would be different. For example, if you are looking at software as a service, most times server cost will be 0 for software as a service. But if it's going to be an on-prem deployment, then there has to be a cost for server. And I don't expect you as the business analyst or the project manager to have this information. You have to work with IT to conduct some server sizing to understand what capacity might be required. Of course, the vendor would help at this point to give a sense to, and then you can know how much that would cost. So I understand the information you need and understand the source of the information, who is in the best position to provide you with that information so you can use it for further analysis. Evaluate and then rank your vendors based on all the information you've been gathering. You can evaluate and rank your vendors, prepare your final report and recommendation. So the key deliverables from this phase are your fit gap analysis, which goes into your final report, of course. Updated requirement listing. You may have found more information through your analysis or through the first 3 phases again. Maybe something came up as more information. You learn of more information, you incorporate it into your report. Then you assemble your final report. So it's important to know that key components of your recommendation report should be, you should show your approach, how you the number of applications you started with and how you were able to prune them down to maybe 2 or 3. Provide a table to show your solution option analysis, the project budget estimates, the scope assumptions, what are the potential risks and what are the mitigation plans. Your total cost of ownership analysis is also important, and other relevant project consideration. So you're not only making a recommendation for technology tool, you're also giving them a sense of what you think should be the sourcing strategy. Depending on if you're a private sector or public sector organization, should it be sole sourcing or alternate procurement as it may be called, or should you put out an RFP and make it competitive? So you are making your recommendation, and of course you're just giving justifications why you are recommending whatever approach you are recommending. This brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening. Now I'll take questions. Also, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm Oge Nwachukwu on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me. And for those that if you're not aware, we have our practical business analysis and project management practicum coming up this weekend. So I've gotten lots of questions. Is it project management? Is it business analysis? So we have a case study project, which we would have 2 tracks. We have the PMs working on the project, and we have the BAs working on the project as well. The PMs and the PMs will focus on typical project management deliverables you would have in a project, while the BAs will focus on all the analysis work and the associated deliverables. However, there are points of collaboration. For example, meeting, kickoff project, kickoff meeting with the stakeholders to understand the high level requirements. You have the BAs and the PM collaborating. Stakeholder identification and analysis, the BAs and PMs are collaborating in doing that work. Even the work breakdown structure, the PM does not do it in isolation. The PM needs to identify all the deliverables and bring the BA teams together, and then they begin to break down the work to understand what the deliverables are and the dependencies. You also have the PM weekly reaching out to the BAs to understand, to monitor and track the progress of work and prepare their project, their weekly project status reports. So there are lots of collaboration throughout the practicum with it. And then it also gives you a sense of how BAs and PMs collaborate within organization. And if you are a BA and you don't know so much about project management, it's an opportunity for you to learn, and also the same applies for the PM. So some of the deliverables we'll be looking at during the practicums. You have them listed on the screen here. So feel free to shoot us an email at info@pollardconsult.com to get more information about the practicum. And we look forward to having you and helping you upgrade your business analysis and project management knowledge and skills. Thank you.